I'm going to give one more minute to let people in. I know that we were asked, can I get the recording? Yes, you can. If you do have to jump off early, feel free. You'll get this recording for sure, along with the mini presentation here. But in all of the webinars I do, if you have not seen one of my webinars before, what I love and thrive off of is interaction. So if you want, if you have something to say, if you have advice of something that I missed, because I can't say it all, if you have a question, please put it in the chat. We do have Kate here who will be paying attention to the questions. And so we'll just hit it with that. You don't have to wait. Just put it in. We will get to it. If for whatever reason we can't get to the questions, I'll do either a quick video that we'll send out, or we'll send it out via email. So let's get to it. Kate, what do you think? We're good to go?
Yep. Let's do this.
Good to go. Okay, so thank you for joining. Again, I'll just repeat real quick. This is a webinar that was or is intended to be focused on engineering soft skills. I've been a tech recruiter now for about 15 years, had Techies recruiting agency, sold that to a firm, started Talent Perch, which is also a great recruiting agency. We do focus on all sorts of different positions, still highly focused in tech as well. And then I have Thriversity, which is really just a learning and development for recruiting and hiring managers of all levels. And so what we want to focus on is how can we make this easier for both sides, easier for the recruiters, easier for the engineers and the hiring managers. And so this is mastering soft skills. What we have seen, especially after COVID, I feel like it's going to become its own thing here, but what we saw with that is that there was a hyper focus on mental health. There was all of a sudden we were forced into remote working where some people were used to it and other people were like, and so we've seen the effects of that, which means we've seen hiring change, not just with the interview process, but with the actual thought process on who do we want to have on our team? Who is best fitted for this team? What are our communication skills? And so we're going to get into that. So this isn't just for you if you're interviewing, although this will be very, very helpful, but it's also just to take in your regular professional lives and personal lives, because soft skills, that they're on both sides. And I talk a lot about, the difference between professional and personal, and it blends a lot more than it used to. And it's a lot more, I guess, okay. Because work life is personal. This is where you spend a lot of your time, many, many, many hours a week. So let's get to it. Okay, so data. I'm sure you engineers can appreciate some hardcore data, us recruiters as well. But 85% of career success comes from having well-developed soft skills and people skills. It's kind of interesting. What's the difference? People skills, soft skills. There's slight differences, but yeah, only 15% of actual hard skills. Now, I know in engineering, especially, it's like, look, you have to know how to code. You're right. You do actually have to know how to do your job. But if you can't communicate, you can't be a team player, it's going to be really difficult to work with you. And so I think the times of, hey, I'm just going to be a code monkey, yes, that's what we used to call engineers a long time ago, those days are hopefully over. You're not just going to always just put your head down and not talk to anyone. It's very rare that as an engineer that you're not working with at least one other person. There's the front end, the back end, there's the DevOps, there's the design, there's project managers. There's so many, cross-functional teams that you have to work with. So it's super important that you have these soft skills. I don't have this number off the top of my head, but I just recently read a report that basically said you could have the person with the same hard skills and the person with the better soft skills will be, I think it was at least 3 times more successful than the person without. So it's super important. Let's go to the next one. Okay, yeah, so soft skills, not so soft. Love this here. And so what I did here was put a few of the soft skills that, we are being asked for as recruiters. You're starting to see more on profiles. I think that's what's really important. But what's important here is to grasp how do you want to brand yourself as an individual? And so I think we get caught a lot with comparing ourselves to others, comparing our seniority to others, our pay, all those things, right? And so you have to understand that what makes you unique is what draws people to you. And this is not just limited to what you do day to day at your job. Okay, so you're thinking, what are you bringing to the table? Not just with ROI on you're getting this project done, but how are you adding to the culture? So lots of times we talk about, oh, we're looking for culture fits. We're no longer looking just for culture fits. We're looking for culture adds. And a culture add really means is what in your personality are you really adding to the team? Like, hey, what are they going to know you for? So for me, my team, I think would say, hey, Brianna comes and brings energy. Any single time she steps here, I feel excited because she's excited. So that I know I can feel really strong about. But what is it that you can bring? Is your curiosity, is it because you're so curious, all of a sudden now you're being really innovative and really creative, and therefore your curiosity, your questions are so powerful that actually is making your product or your code better. So when you are interviewing and you're focusing on the soft skills, it's like, what happens when they hire you? Who are they getting? What is their ROI from you as an individual? And again, that's soft and hard skills. What are you bringing to the table that nobody else can? And I think that that's really strong. So if anyone, again, if you want to put in the comments, hey, what is the one thing that you're like, I've got this. I know it. I've got it. I own it. I can do it. People love me for this reason. And if you can't think of at least one thing, then this is a whole other can of worms that we'll have to get into in another webinar, is how can you really show your strength and your confidence without feeling that your ego is huge? Because I think that's kind of a mental block on that. I'm not talking about how great my energy is because my ego is so big about it. I'm talking about because I'm just confident in those skills. And I think that that's something that you really, really need to harness. You really need to hold strong on. You should know the top 5 skills off of the top of your head. And in an interview, or even just in speaking with, their team members, or you want a promotion, you don't just feature your soft skills in an interview. You feature them all the time. And, if you're going to you want to move up the ladder, you want to get paid more, you want to get this certain project, you have to be able to demonstrate this and stand really strongly on this, because if you don't, somebody else will. And I'm sure, and feel free to raise hands or put in the comments as well, I'm sure you have seen throughout your career someone maybe get an opportunity that you thought you were better for, but they got it and you sat there wondering why. Was their soft skills stronger? Were they more aggressive? Did they go out and get it? Did they ask for it? So let's go to the next one. Okay, so again, from a recruiter's perspective, because we see it a lot, we hire a lot of engineers, is the most asked for soft skills. So at the bare minimum, you need to put these 4 soft skills on your resume and on your LinkedIn profile. And I don't know if I have to talk to engineers about Booleans, but LinkedIn definitely will take into account onto how many times a word is on either your resume, because again, it's going through an applicant tracking system that we look at, or via LinkedIn. So even if it's not just a recruiter looking, a hiring manager will be looking, and in their mind, they will be thinking, hey, I want someone that's really creative. I want someone that's really collaborative, that has strong communication skills, and that has really strong critical thinking skills. So these are the top 4 that we're asked for, and we'll go over many others, right? But creativity, you cannot have innovation without creativity. So think about a time, when was the time that you improved an existing product or a process? Because I don't think process gets a lot of credit all the time, but without process, it's going to take longer to build a product. So even if you thought outside the box for any small thing, think about how much time and energy that might have saved you or your team. Now, there's a small switch in language sometimes, and it's collaboration. So when you're talking about collaboration, you need to highlight not just your own wins. I did this, I did that, I accomplished this. You have to really start using the term we. I think we is really important, and because it shows not just collaboration, right? But it shows how strong your teamwork is. That's what collaborating is. And when you're talking about collaborating, we also would be nice to talk about cross-functional teams. That's super important. Now, communication. Communication is its own can of worms, which we'll also get into on the next slide. But what's really important right now is to listen to understand, not to respond. Let's say that again. Listen to understand, not to respond. I bet that at least half of you was already thinking about what their thoughts are when I say that. Maybe not even listening to the whole sentence. And I think that happens a lot. The reason why I know that is because we could have all 100 people in one room, and I could say that one sentence, and I could ask you guys, what do you think I mean? And there's probably going to be tons of different answers on that. And so we are human beings. So that's why communication is so important, to be an active listener. And by the way, communicate that active listening, especially in an interview, I mean, you really have to hone into that. And the hard part with interviewing, besides all the anxiety and all the other stuff that it comes with, is that you're trying to like think of your point, and you want to make sure that you get this really great point across. So like you come across and they really want to hire you. But the thing is that if you focus on what you're trying to say, what you're trying to accomplish, you're not really in it and you're not actively listening. And I think people can really, really notice and understand that. And then sometimes what I've noticed is someone will ask me a question that I actually already answered. I answered later on when we were talking, but it happens all the time. It's because they thought of the question early on in the conversation and was so focused on not losing their question that they weren't paying attention to me, which, by the way, whoo, so disrespectful. So what I do now, because I did struggle with this earlier on in my career, is I always have a notebook in front of me. I got my pen going, and when someone's talking, I am ferociously writing whatever my point was, whatever my question was, and I'm putting it down, and I'm ready, and I'm focused, and I'm listening. If people are going too fast, if I do not know what they're talking about, if there's an acronym that they're throwing out there, I will absolutely be like, I'm sorry, really quick. Can you just tell me? Can you clarify? Because I know that if I don't know something, I'm feeling emotions. And those emotions are, fear that I don't know something, embarrassed. And then also, if I don't know something, I might be missing something crucial. So absolutely, like those are those moments where I know we don't want to interrupt, but those are those moments you really have to, or at least write it down to go back to it. And then last but not least is the C's is critical thinking. Boy, in engineering, I mean, in any job, but engineering especially, this is super important. But as you're displaying this in an interview, it's really important to explain how your decision-making process is in general. And hopefully you're always using data, evidence, and a logical thought process. Because emotions, again, get really drawn into this. So I think it's easy to say, we made this decision because, and then all of a sudden feelings get involved. But it's more of like just black and white. This is why we made it. This is what we saw. And this is what happened afterwards. Super important. Okay, so I told you we were going to dig into communication because there is a lot of different ways to communicate. And I really think, especially in interviewing, this is hard. So we have naturally verbal communication, face-to-face, phone calls, meetings, voice and video conferencing. I'm sure we're all exhausted as we sit here in a video conference. We're probably all exhausted from it. You know what? I wouldn't have minded to pick up my phone and just chat it out. I love that. Actually, I feel, and this is odd, but I feel like my personality comes through a little bit more on phones because I don't have phone fatigue. I have video fatigue. So that's interesting. So it's really best to note, what is your preference of communication? What are you the best at? And then now, what do you feel you're really lacking? And then what you're lacking with, let's now focus on enhancing that. So I love the next one, which is nonverbal communication. Oh my goodness. So this is something that I think people lose focus on a lot, but body language, eye contact, and tonality. I'm imagining that if I was saying, so next we're going to focus on nonverbal communication, and then we'll focus on written I mean, I'm bored just talking like that, right? But I'm sure you guys are no longer listening to me. I'm over here. I'm in la la land. Like, I'm not even interested. My tone was there was no enthusiasm in my tone. That's so hard to listen to. Now, at the same time, if you're not a high energy lover, my tone actually might be insulting to some people, right? And we might be like, calm down, Brianna, calm down. So when I do, depending on, you have to read the room, right? Now, I think that you're not going to really be dinged for coming in with some high energy. But again, if someone's giving me very low energy, I'm not going to try to like high energy the crap out of them. Okay. So you really have to be careful with your body language. Sitting up tall, even if they can't see you, it's still important to have a smile on your face, to have all the distractions away, to really make sure, even though on the phone, there's no eye contact, right? But to make sure that you're not looking at your screen, you're not distracted. Really, really, really important. Because again, I think that they can feel that. And without it, like people are going to start, okay, here's another one. So I used to pride myself in being somewhat tone deaf because there's been attitudes throughout the years when I've had some certain employees. Employees are hard, but and so I'm like, okay, I have to pay attention to what they're saying, not how they're saying it, because biases start creeping in. So think about that. If you have, either a boring tone or an aggressive tone, people might shut down and not hear what you have to say. And what you have to say might be really powerful and important. So another really important thing. Written communication. I would imagine written communication right now is probably the one that we need to pay the most attention to because we're living in a digital world. So email, instant messaging, whether it's Slack, Discord, Teams, whatever you use. But that's also in reports, letters, memos, stuff like that. But written communication, there's also tonality in that. And so it's really important to use, like a tool, like a Grammarly, for example, with all of your messaging, because they'll tell you what your tone is. You can pay a little bit extra for that. It's really important. You can even do that via ChatGPT. If something's super important, and maybe not always instant messaging, but like if it's a really important email or report, I might put that in ChatGPT and say, hey, can you please read what tone you feel with this? So there are definitely tools that you can use that are really important. But I know that I've even had someone fired. One of my candidates got fired, engineer, because of their instant messaging behavior. I guess it was what it would be, is they were really aggressive in messaging. And so even though that you want to get straight to the point, there are some niceties that have to be involved, or at least talk it out and say, hey, just so you know, it's via instant messaging. I'm really direct, but just know that like all the niceties are in there. Like I'm feeling that. My intent is not to be rude. My intent is to be direct. But that comes from verbalizing that communication style and making sure the other person knows that. That's really important. There's visual communication, definitely a lot in engineering, graphics, charts, presentations, even videos sometimes. Video is a really powerful way to communicate, I think. There's lots of things lost in translation when it comes to, again, instant messaging. By the way, I always think of AOL when I hear instant messaging. I'm dating myself. But yeah, so visual communication, video is super powerful. I use something called Loom, but there's tons of different stuff you could use. But Loom is great because if you want to just really quickly explain what you want to explain instead of writing it out, making sure it's clear, making sure it has the right tonality, stuff like that, video is fantastic for that. But again, it's something that you have to get good at. And then I just added another one. I know this kind of intertwines, but interpersonal communication, because you really do have to communicate differently versus one-on-one. One-on-one can be a lot more intimate. You can have probably a lot more personal conversation, a little fun to it, and then get down to business. And you also normally, when it's one-on-one, you guys each can take turns talking. So there's not just one person dominating the conversation, because that can be really difficult. Which brings me to group discussions. So group discussions or group interviewing, for example, which definitely happens in engineering, group discussions can be really difficult. When it's just one person being focused on, it could feel like spotlights on you. It's really heavy. It's very anxiety filled. And so in group discussions, I think it's important to look at the verbal cues, the visual cues of people. Does it look like they have something to say? Give them the space to say it. No interrupting. If you have a point, almost like kind of like put your hand up really quick, like you're in school, and then, you know, put it down so you're being acknowledged that you have something to say. And then that goes to, you know, trying to listen to understand. I think in group discussions, listening to understand is so difficult because it's like you feel you're trying to get your point across, and you want to make sure people know that you're important and that what you have to say matters. But again, it's more about taking turns and really hearing each other. And so also interpersonal communication is in you. Maybe you're the person being the interviewer. You're interviewing people, you're interviewing people, and your conversation with them is really important. It's really important that your communication style is set for everyone, so there's no biases as well. And so also I have heard on the other side that I've had some hiring managers or people that are doing interviews, and unfortunately they're not completely into it. You know, it's like another one of your daily tasks you have to do, and you have more important things to do. And so the person on the other side feels really jaded by that. So I think it's really important to give the respect through any kind of communication. All right, tips and tricks, here we go. So I'm assuming you have all heard of the STAR method. It's something that we talk a lot about in interviewing and recruiting in general, but it's situation, task, action, and result. And the way that is that anything you're trying to explain, especially in an interview, you need to give context. And the way to give context is to talk about the situation, talk about the task at hand, what action you did, and then the result of it. And that really comes together, like you really know, one, what you're talking about, but you're actually passionate about it and you remember. So I think the way to remember situations easily is to do a reflection, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but I really believe in having a growth mindset. And the way to have a growth mindset is to document and have a growth journal on a daily basis, regular basis. So another thing is use non-technical language when explaining complex concepts to non-engineering team members, clients, and especially us recruiters. So as you're going through the interview process, you're not only talking to engineers, right? You're talking to product managers. You could be talking to the recruiter first, but you need to make sure that it's not talking down to them. It's just being an effective communicator. It's knowing your audience. Like, I'm not going to sit here in front of a bunch of engineers and have a ton of different acronyms, talent acquisition acronyms. But I'm not going to do that because I want to make sure that you're understanding what I have to say. And that's a really effective way to communicate. Now, I love this one, but openly talking about your willingness to learn and acquire new skills needed. This just shows how adaptable you are. Adaptable to change is something especially in engineering that has to happen all the time. Tenacity has to come through. You know, you're constantly changing projects, especially if you are used to working at startups. I mean, even in bigger companies, they change things a lot of times, you know, so making it really clear that not only are you ready and willing to learn, but then talk about, hey, this is what I just learned last week. Hey, these are the new skills I just acquired. You know, it's really important. It's definitely great to be a specialist and be like, I know this really, really well, but to think broader, to be more of a generalist, to show you're putting all sorts of tricks into your bag. And that's really important because what will happen is if there's two candidates and you're pretty much at the same level and you've accomplished almost the same things, the person that will show adaptability is the one that will win that game. Next one is understand the needs and concerns of both technical and non-technical stakeholders, which shows empathy. So again, being in engineering a lot, I know that there's a little battle sometimes between product managers and engineers because product managers think very differently. And so the whole thing there is to really sit down and say, what are you needing? Why are you needing it? And then what is the concerns that we're doing it this way? Having those very open, thoughtful conversations, again, just shows how empathetic you are. It shows how collaborative you are. Very important. So while you're going through an interview, talk about those times. So use that STAR method to show how you've used empathy, because on the other side of the people that are interviewing you, they're trying to grasp your soft skills without full-blown saying, so tell me how you're empathetic. Some people might, but that's not normally how it happens. So we actually do think of questions to provoke what soft skills come from each. Keeping the team manager informed about progress and potential delays in any project really shows your time management skills. And so I think that this is super important because it shows that you are very self-aware that maybe something isn't going to plan, but instead of missing that deadline, you're ahead of it, because showing that you understand how important expectations are shows respect, shows, again, self-awareness, and it shows that you're a team player and that you understand like how important these projects are to the business. And as an employee or a potential employee, if you can have a business hat on, regardless of what job you do, you're even more powerful to an organization because you're showing your ROI, the return on investment. Now, another one, encourage brainstorming sessions to explore creative solutions. This is problem solving and teamwork. I love this too, because again, it shows that your way, it's not your way or the highway, right? It's like, you know that there's other solutions. You know that there's several ways to do this, and that not only do you know, but you want to see how else we can do this. Again, this for engineering especially shows how innovative you are and how dedicated you are to the craft. Love this. So again, think about a time where you did this and it worked really well. All right, so we're going to get a little more nitty gritty when it comes to the job search. Understanding the job description. This also you can understand via talking to your recruiter. Recruiters are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this stuff, so definitely dig. They'll help you as much as they can. Well, they should. So what soft skills are the most relevant to this position? So from my perspective, I'll normally tell people this. So give them a little cheat sheet of some sort, or be like, hey, the hiring manager really likes this. But you should also be doing this yourself. So as you're grasping and applying for a certain position, you should say, okay, what I'm seeing is I'm going to need creative problem skills because they have a problem to solve that hasn't been solved yet. Okay, I'm going to show them how I do this. I'm telling you, people get hired for their soft skills. Now, you have to think about, how do you quantify the impact of your soft skills? So here's an example. Through effective communication and teamwork, we improve project efficiency by 20%. So you're showing that you're data focused, you're giving them the evidence, you are offering how you did these things essentially, and you're showing that, yeah, you didn't just say, I've got excellent soft skills, like we improved, we got projects done way faster. Well, let's give a little more context to show you're actually an effective communicator as well. Now, this I already kind of talked about, but I want to touch on again, is using non-technical language when explaining complex concepts to non-engineering team members or clients. I had to put this in again because I hear that a lot. I hear that, and the way it comes across is that you're too smart for the room, and that doesn't really help people because they think you're very arrogant, and that's probably not what's happening. It's just that you're used to talking tech and you didn't think not to. So that's really important. And then the next one is, well, everything's important, but using positive language. So I wanted to give an example here because it's very slight, but I wanted you to notice it. So instead of saying, I had to deal with difficult colleagues, because I'm sure we all have, right? You're going to say, oh yeah, no, I successfully navigated challenging situations with my team. It also alludes to like wanting to dig a little bit. Oh, tell me how you solved these situations. Tell me how you handled this. And it gives, again, more context to the situation. And it shows that you actually look on the bright side of things, and that difficult problems do not stop you. So it shows how, you're a fighter, but you're also a team player. And so that I love. So just be careful with how you have your, how you state things. So as you are going through this, it's important to prepare and reflect. impact. So when I talked about the growth and success journal, that's something that I do. And so and sometimes it just happens where, oh my God, I had a big win today. I'm going to talk about it. Or, oh my God, I learned this. I'm going to journal about it. But I try to hold strong on every 2 to 3 days at the most. I'm in my journal in the morning talking about what I've learned or what I've accomplished. And then what's nice, and I'm sure you can all hear me here, is feel free to put it in the chat, is like you get to your review and your manager wants to talk about all the things that you accomplished. What have you done? And it's like, I don't even know what I did, but like you did a million things. You know, you did a million things. You were super busy. You were super stressed. But you cannot think of them because there's like that roadblock and you only think of the last thing you did, which is why when you're interviewing, also have an interview journal, because what tends to happen, and I very much know this because I hear about it, is you tend to like the last interview the most, assuming that it was a good interview, right? But you tend to also accept the last offer you got. That's just human nature, is we forget about number one, and we move to what happened the most recent because it's just fresh in our minds. Same with dating, right? You could go on 3 dates in a week and you're like, wait, who was that first person I dated? So definitely write down in their journal, what new programming language or tool did you play around with? What did you use? What new site did you go on? You're looking at GitHub, right? Like what did you learn from that person? That's really interesting. Also, a difficult conversation. So we all have difficult conversations. Hopefully they're not confrontations. They're just conversations. Kind of reword that in your mind here. But write that down too and write how you handled it. Because again, this goes back to your soft skills, but not just write down how you handled it. How could you have handled it better? How would you how could you have gotten ahead of that difficult conversation? And this is just to show yourself how you've grown, but then also help you throughout your career, because you can talk about this. And talking about things, I think, is really, really powerful, because I'm sure every single one of you has had some issues, has failed an interview because maybe you couldn't articulate when you've had a difficult conversation. When have you pivoted to get the job done? We talked about adaptability being a very strong soft skill. And so in order to pivot and change really quickly, you had to do this. And then how did you do that? And then why did you do it? Which again is problem solving skills, which brings me to how did you solve a problem? What was your thought process for it? How did you do it? How quickly did you move? Showing leadership, regardless of your level. I think we're now at a point where you can lead at every single level, and you don't have to be a manager to do that. There is a strong difference between leaders and managers, and they are not one and the same. Hopefully they both have similar skill sets, but that's not always the case. So you can very much lead a project at any level, and you can show that you're hungry to do it, which again really shows strongly in an interview that you were able to do that. And then what I would also do before I'm interviewing is I'm going to research the team on LinkedIn, on GitHub, on Stack Overflow, anywhere else, sometimes Twitter, anywhere else, engineers live. But the reason why I want to do that is to grasp, okay, where do they come from? What kind of companies are they used to? Does anyone volunteer? Are they involved in any groups? Can I see any soft skills through that? I definitely think that now on LinkedIn, again, we're getting a lot more personal. We're mixing personal with professional, which is great. Because we are people, so we should have never kept them separate. But you're now able to grasp what people like, or who they are, even if they have kids or are married. We're starting to put that stuff on there, so there's that fine balance, and you want to be able to connect in as many different ways as possible. And so I would definitely research the team. And that's also kind of reading the room before you're in the room. And so that can be super powerful. Okay, and skills assessment, so almost last but not least, is there is definitely a skills section on your LinkedIn profile, and this is something that recruiters do look heavily at. And so there's also tons of assessments you can do as engineers, but you can also just list your skills as well, and you can have other people endorse them. But the reason why this is super powerful, depending on the recruiter, of course, but I'd say that more often than not, recruiters will use there's something you don't see behind the scenes, which is we can find people based on their skill set. So there's a section for keywords, and there is a section for skills, and a lot of recruiters are going to skills. And because it's a really easy way to understand what you do. So remember, as a recruiter, we are not technical, we are not engineers, so we need to be able to understand really easily if you're a Python engineer versus C++ engineer. What is your strength? What are you the best at? Are you front end or are you back end? Are you full stack? And if you're full stack, are you more front or are you more back? There's always one that you lean towards. So in order to, I guess I would say, help us out and come up in Boolean searches, and actually, even if the hiring manager is just doing it, this person will also most likely go to skills as well. And so it's just another free way to improve and enhance your profile. So use it. Something that I didn't put on here because it's not exactly about that in this webinar, but use the video, the 30-second video you can put on LinkedIn. Use the 10-second thing to where it says to say your name. Use all of these things. It is through LinkedIn Mobile, and so it's a really great tool, again, to showcase your skills, but also showcase your soft skills, because via video is so powerful, so powerful. So go to the next, Kate. So this is really inspired by Palantir. So what we are involved with is a soft skills interview AI module. And the reason why is because we talk about soft skills all the time. Soft skills is a very, very difficult thing to grasp and to interview for. And on the hiring side, we see it a lot. We talk to teams a lot about it, how they're doing it. But most importantly, how are they combating biases when interviewing? Because again, when you're saying like, hey, how's this person's soft skills for XYZ, it's very biased, and it's very difficult. So I would love your help as engineers to take this 15-minute video interview. Do it as a practice, by the way, because some of the questions in there are very much questions, not some of them. All of the questions in there are very much questions you would get asked in an interview, that I have seen get asked a lot. And so take this. It helps us train this bot in soft skills, because as we see AI coming more and more and more and more into our interview process, they are trying to also come into the first step of the interview process. So it's something that we need to get used to. And so, yeah, this is going to be through voxpop.me. We'll send this in an email, but please, if you could send it to all of your engineering networks, the bigger the sample size we have, the smarter this bot can be before it goes to market. And so that's super, super important. And it's that one's pretty close to my heart, because again, soft skills is the new hard skills. Please, please, please always do this. I will tell you, my career changed when I finally got emotional intelligence training. It was the most powerful tool, powerful program. It took 8 weeks. And it was really great for me as an individual, not just at work, but as a human being. So also, thank you for being here so much. And especially you take that video interview, I want to make sure that we are here for you, and we're giving 25% off interview prep and mock interview. Use the code soft skills, and we're going to have this sale through actually my birthday, which is September 28th. We also offer a resume and LinkedIn revitalization. And so we're here for that. I definitely think that with the interview so crowded, I mean, you'll see thousands and thousands of applicants at this point for one job. It's really important that you guys are on point here, and it's really important, even if you are not mock interviewing with us, please mock interview with your colleagues, with your family, your friends, whoever. But interviewing is definitely a science. There's science to it. You need practice. Worst comes to worst, and let's just say you have 10 companies you want to interview with. Please interview with your least favorite first. Save your favorites for later, because if you are not practicing, you're gonna get in a little trouble here. And again, soft skills is what's coming through right now. It's something we get asked a lot. So before, when I used to do a little tip here, when we did intakes, the hiring manager, the VP of engineering would say, all right, Brandon, tell me what they code in percentage of the time, that, and they would just kind of go down the technical stuff that this person would need. Now I'm getting, hey, can you please highlight their communication skills and any other soft skills you think really comes through strong? Because we're having trouble onboarding people remotely. or we're having trouble, people not working together as a team, we're having collaboration issues. So all of these issues are coming out pretty strong, and they're absolutely trying to crack down on some soft skills here and embrace and get better and always grow. So always be growing, always be learning, have a growth mindset. If we have any questions, I still have a little bit of time if we want to pop them in there. Otherwise, thanks so much for showing up. This shows that you're ready to grow. Any questions? Is it okay to ask recruiter what the hiring manager is looking for? Oh my God, absolutely. Please ask your recruiters for any cheat sheet they will give you. They know the hiring manager like the back of their hand. And so if they are not already giving you this information, please ask for it. There are some companies that are actually getting ahead of this, which is really interesting. I don't know if you've seen this trend yet, but in job descriptions, I have actually seen the hiring manager talk about themselves. Hey, I manage this way and I operate like this. These are my communication skills. This is how I like to communicate. So you can already tell that they're trying to get ahead of the soft skills aspects of things by putting themselves out there. So yeah, you have questions, ask them. I don't think there's any questions you shouldn't ask a recruiter to give you some insight on, and they should have all this insight. The job of a recruiter is to get this position filled. And the hiring manager is constantly like, why is this position not filled? So if they have any knowledge, they're going to let you know. Any other questions? All right, going once, going twice. All right, I'll have a really great day. I hope this really helped. We'll send this out via email, and please do that video interview for us. Talk soon.